folks. I'm Natalie Nidham, your host, and we are back. Today's guest is Ben Katz, also known as Mr. Mass Spec, an academic analytical chemist at UC Irvine who reverse engineers everything from Taco Bell meat to popcorn to Doritos, and sometimes entire industries. His whole mission? Figure out what's actually in our stuff and make sure that we know about it. We talk about why synthetic nicotine may actually be cleaner than plant-derived, how natural flavors, supposedly, can hide everything from modified pepper molecules to stealth sweeteners, and why your ultra-pasteurized milk has to be reflavored just to taste like milk again. And yes, we even get into the Target plastic bag that smells like, well, let's face it, a chemistry lab. You guys are just going to love this episode. He's so entertaining. Now, this episode is brought to you by Manukora Honey, Bioptimizers, Magnesium, and Nature's Marvels Natural Bioregulators, all with special offers just for you. Check out the show notes below for details and enjoy the show. Ben Katz, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Like I said, I have to give credit to my producer on this one. She's like, Nat, you need to meet this guy and you need to interview him. And I was like, all right. And then I started looking into it and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I think this is so super cool for the audience. I know that you're going to be right with me. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit? You're the mass spectrometry guy. So tell us about you.
I've gone by the name Mr. Mass Spec, and then the channel on everything is Mass Spec Everything now. So it's kind of, I didn't limit myself in my mass specking. I'm mass specking
I've noticed.
Everything, and I may have bitten off more than I can chew here. So yeah, it's,
well, from booze to plastic bags and everything in between.
Anything you can think of. And then people are. I put a voicemail line, which is kind of fun. So I started trying to do like a little voicemail line Twitch show. And then so people call in and leave suggestions. And then I get lots of email suggestions. And then I am an academic. I'm at UC Irvine. So I have all my academic projects as well. So it's
you're a busy guy.
But it's a fun side project here, this Mass Spec Everything brand.
I love it. So why don't we tell people what a mass spec is?
Yeah,
so some people may not know.
Mass spectrometer is a way to measure the mass of molecules, and masses typically correspond for small molecules to their chemical formula. And then you can even fragment these molecules inside the mass spec to give you like conclusive fragmentation ions to tell you what something is. And so mass specs are great for figuring out, we're like the reverse engineers of stuff. We can figure out what's in stuff. And so that's a lot of what mass spec is being used for when you have complex products. Then we're also doing all the boring things, like if a synthetic chemist is just trying to make a chemical and make sure they made the chemical, we're doing that. We're also doing all the CSI stuff that you see on TV, like we're forensics. So I do some forensics work. And then we're also doing a lot of the kind of boring quality control work that should be done. Like, is this product or this, ingredient you received the same as the last batch? And so there's mass spec people that are running, quality control at a bunch of companies. And then a huge portion of my academic work is all pharmaceutical. So the pharmaceutical industry is probably the biggest in making both small and large molecule drugs and biologics. And so mass spec plays a role in all of that and part of the quality control and confirming that we've made things properly. And then, educating students to do it and have jobs to do analytical chemistry. So,
all the things.
Yeah, all the things.
So how did you get started, though, on what you do? So clearly you have a job, and in your job, people bring you things. But how did you get started being Mr. Mass Spec?
That was on accident. So I definitely didn't seek out to be Mr. Mass Spec. I was originally making YouTube videos maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And they were just instructional how to use mass spec videos, and they were very unpopular. Super unpopular, just for my niche, people, how to use this piece of equipment. And then I think I went through like a long period of, I thought it was interesting for like people that don't know a mass spec lab to like see just like a piece of robotics move for 15 seconds. So I went through like a silent phase where I was just showing equipment moving. And then I think I just like randomly one day decided to start talking in a video, and it did better. People wanted to hear my voice, and I was like, oh, okay. So people actually want to hear my voice. And then I think what did it all was I made a video on TikTok about what's in the Taco Bell meat. So I was eating a
Oh,
Taco Bell taco,
yeah.
and I did a video, what's in the meat? And I think my wife woke me up the next morning and she's like, that video you just made has like 30,000 views. And then throughout the day, it went up to like 1 million plus views. And
Yeah.
then I became the what's in it guy. And for a while, it was just meat and burgers. And then I was like, I don't want to get pigeonholed in meat and burgers. So then I started doing like some candy and sodas. And I did a lot of chocolate. I'm really interested in how much caffeine is in chocolate, especially like my kids' candy bars. They're
Yeah.
heavily caffeinated sometimes. And then I got into checking nicotine pouches for people really interested in these nicotine pouches and vapes and seeing if the nicotine's clean. And so I had already done a lot of that stuff for the FDA. So I was like, oh, we can just go ahead and like just throw
Open the
some of
box.
this data out there and explain things to people.
So that the nicotine thing is interesting because my understanding is your work with the nicotine products led to some changes in the industry or some products being pulled off the shelf. You want to talk about that? Like, what is it about nicotine?
Just generally, like I do work with like some of the FDA and DEA enforcement groups, which were like high level enforcement. So when they're making regulations about importing, usually it comes down to taxes. To tell you the truth, is the reason why people like in the government care.
Okay, well, we don't care about that. What we want to know is like in the nicotine world, is there variations we need to know about?
Yeah, so there's two main differences. There's synthetic nicotine, which is taxed one way, and there is naturally derived nicotine, which is taxed a different way. And so I've been a strong proponent of trying to convince people that synthetic nicotine is better.
Why?
Because when you extract things out of a plant, all these other similar compounds that are related, so other xanthan alkaloids for caffeine, and then other nicotine alkaloids. So like anabastine and cotinine are much more they're much more cancerous than nicotine itself is considered a cancerous drug as well, but there's other analogs of it, specifically anabastine, which would be only in the nicotine plant. That can, when you're extracting out the nicotine and purifying it, it still tags along.
Yeah.
So very similar in structure, and it's far more toxic. And so the idea that sometimes plant-produced compounds are more toxic because of tag-along molecules is something that people should think about more. I also think it's a problem with caffeine as well. There's this huge push for natural caffeine. I'm actually a proponent of caffeine anhydrous, which is
no way,
because caffeine anhydrous, is 100% caffeine. If you extract it from like green tea or coffee or green coffee, you get a lot of other xanthan alkaloids. And so you get all these other molecules that have other effects. And when you're purifying things and concentrating it from plants, you sometimes get way more than you'd actually want. And so some of my early work in nicotine was checking the validity of importers' claims on whether or not it was synthetic or plant-derived.
Hey folks, I just wanted to throw a little message in here for those of you who are sending me all these incredible questions on social media or through YouTube or even on Spotify, wherever you're listening to the podcast. I wish I could get back to you, each one of you personally, but unfortunately I can't. And because I cannot, I created about a couple of years ago now, I created a membership community where I get to hang out with people just like you. I do live weekly Q&As, almost weekly anyway. We also do have podcast guests come in to answer everybody's questions and do presentations. You get to interact live with those podcast guests. We will sometimes do challenges with some of the partners. Like in 2026, we have a mitochondrial enhancement challenge coming up where we're going to be testing mitochondrial function. We're going to be testing people's deuterium levels. If you haven't heard about deuterium, we've got podcasts coming down the pipes on that. And then people will be invited to follow a personalized protocol and then retest their mitochondria on the other side. We offer that in the membership community, and we do it at incredible discounts that you just can't find anywhere else. So if you're interested in hanging out with me and other like-minded people which actually happen to include some pretty awesome practitioners and even some previous podcast guests who've come and joined the community, then I invite you to check it out on my website, natnidham.com/the-longevity-community, or just go to natnidham.com and look for the longevity community tab at the top of the page. Click on that and see if this is right for you. I would love to see you there. And we could make 2026 our best year ever together. So once again, that's natnidham.com. Just look for the longevity community tab at the top of the page. Now let's get back to the show. So for the synthetic nicotine, basically it's a cleaner product. You know what you're getting. But is nicotine carcinogenic no matter what way you're ingesting it?
I don't know. That's the thing I try to walk a thin line on so I'm not a medical doctor. So I'm just going to defer the medical side of it. But as an analytical chemist, when people are adding ingredients and they say this product contains nicotine, I want the cleanest product possible. I want it to be nicotine purified. There was a bunch of research back on whether or not the diastereomers, like if it's all R versus all S, or if it's the racemic mixture. There was some medical research based on that, I believe, as well. As far as addiction, I don't know if that's true or not, and probably not the right person. But there's a lot of stuff on diastereomers as well. Like when drug companies make drugs, they usually patent the racemic mixture and the purified R and S isomers differently because they have different effects in the body.
Yeah, so these are mirror images of the molecule, right?
But they have different effects in how they affect your body. And so there's usually one isomer that's stronger. And so I don't know the research behind nicotine, but that's the way that we would check it analytically. The synthetic is going to be a racemic mixture of both, and then plants make all one isomer. And so if somebody's lying, it's really easy to tell. And so we found all sorts of different things from importers, where importers were completely lying, where they were blending. There was like an off mixture. And so, in my opinion, same thing, caffeine's not chiral, but it's the same thing where I prefer for these ingredients for it to be one thing, and that's kind of what I've gotten at a lot with the channel, is that there are ingredient labels on food and products that are multiple things. And they really need to be flushed out and be more specific.
Yeah. No, I guess I was asking, and I guess this isn't your work, is really like, if you light it on fire, does it change in a way that makes it more or less toxic versus, you get like nicotine gum and nicotine chews, like you get all these different nicotine products.
That's such a good question. I mean, absolutely combustion is going to cause differences in the molecule. And so, I don't know. I'm sure there's people that research that for sure. And then the same thing with vaporizers, right? Vaporizing on a nebulizer on the molecule is different. Skin absorption of the molecule is going to be different. But as far as the known impurities that come from the nicotine plant itself, specifically this molecule called anabastine, it's far more toxic than nicotine.
I'll bet. All right. So what was in the Taco Bell meat? Was there any meat in the Taco Bell meat? The thing that I think was
the hook that people cared about was there was putrescine, which I see in all.
But that's part of the spermidine, putrescine.
Yeah, and so it's supposed to kind of be there, right? But it's funny because that's what people look up and it's like rotting meat, and then people are like, "Oh, it's rotting meat," but like really, like all dead, animals are going to be producing this, and even plants that are producing this, and so. But it was the hook that got the general population to care about what I said. And then I put out putrescine hats and T-shirts a little bit.
You did not.
Funny. And I was probably the number one person that wore them. And then people thought they were pretty, I don't know, people thought they were funny.
Yeah.
If you're in the know.
If you know, you know. Yeah. Well, putresine's interesting, right? Because it's part of that triad with the spermidine, spermine, and putrescine that actually has pretty significant beneficial effect on the human body.
And then I brought up another one actually when I did the popcorn. My most recent video is the popcorn video, and I dropped the diferuloputrescine, which is a metabolite from corn.
Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting corn metabolite that everyone criminalizes corn, I guess. But I think these putrescines are supposed to have positive effects.
Well, and I mean the interesting thing, and I think it's interesting about corn. I mean, we live in a society where people really like a soundbite. They like a short little hit. And the problem with corn is not that it's corn, it's that it's been genetically modified and nobody's really bothered to take the time to figure out, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, there's aspects of the corn manufacturing process that could be problematic. But, at the heart of it, a little diphenylbutadiene is probably not so bad from corn bran. Yeah.
Well, do we know?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
No, nobody studied
from
it.
the literature that I said, it looked like it was pretty good.
I guess when you're doing your work, when you're investigating whether it's a food or a drink or whatever it is, you're going to find different peaks on the report, and then it's going to come down to what are you going to chase down? Are you going to look at all the peaks?
Yeah. Well, for the social media channel, it's usually like it is kind of the soundbite or trying to get people interested in what I'm saying. I do also try to like have a general theme of things that I'm working on. It's kind of in the background. But yeah, you're right. It's the things I haven't focused on in the channel that I get a lot of questions on is quantitation. So I've not. It's a lot more work in mass spec to be quantitative. And to be absolutely quantitative, you have to use a different type of equipment, and there's a lot more like validation stuff. I'm doing more discovery, so what I call it is discovery untargeted analysis, right? And so it's kind of the early stage. If you were going to do like a real research project with a lab like ours, you would start where my channel is, and you first want to discover things that are in it. So, because you can't quantify what's in it until you know the things you're looking for. And then when you're going to quantify things, you need to buy standards, and you need to set up standard curves, and you need to do everything all proper. And that's more boring. And so
who has time for that?
We're going to not deal with that. Don't got time. Too many things. I chose everything, right? So it's
So recently there was a big to-do about a supplement in the biohacking space, we'll call it. And there was an ingredient in that product that had not been disclosed.
Okay.
And I've spoken to people in the industry since then who believe that ingredient was added by the manufacturer without the company actually even knowing about it. And then somebody found it, and I don't know how, and it was maltodextrin.
Okay. Maltodextrin seems like something that you may not have to disclose.
Yeah. And so the brand themselves, I think, were caught off guard. It was a big deal, because people started accusing the brand of being unethical and dishonest.
Really? All of a maltodextrin, which is in a lot of stuff.
Well, right. But I think because sometimes, and particularly in this space, people get really sticky about what is and isn't in a product.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, right.
I appreciate that. I'm like the first advocate of everything being labeled. Like, I want CAS numbers for every single ingredient with the molecule name. I feel like, knowledge is power. And so a lot of times when I'm talking about stuff, it's mainly because I found it and I want people to just be able to do their own research. And so I do think that hiding ingredients, there's no reason to do it. You're not giving people the exact formulation. And so I think the more transparency, the better, because people are empowered now to do their own research and come up with their own answers. And so why hide anything these days? And so
ask the questions. So have you ever looked into, I'm just so full of questions right now because, I started off as a holistic nutritionist, and now I've been in this space that's slightly more expanded for the last 10 years or so. And there's a big narrative around, cereal companies line the bags of the cereal, like the cereal bags in the box, with chemicals to keep the cereal crunchy.
Well, yeah, they're probably using TBHQ or one of these like approved antioxidant drying agent type things. But yeah, for sure.
Which is not particularly helpful for human health.
No, this
doesn't need to be disclosed on the box. Like
sometimes they need to be disclosed on the box, sometimes they don't. So yeah, so again, on my general theme, my biggest and most general theme is so who do you come after, right? How are all these things sneaking into food, and they aren't allowed to? They don't have to put them on the label, right? There's rules. So the way to sneak things in is in the flavors category.
So I want to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, and so there's no the organization is called FEMA, not the Emergency Management Agency, but the Flavors and Extractives Manufacturing Association.
Okay,
that list has gotten out of control. The Extractives Manufacturing Association, which is exactly what it sounds like, it's a manufacturing association. It is not a regulated agency. They recommend directly to the FDA what is considered generally recognized as safe. GRAS. I mean, if your users probably know the word GRAS, this is
Yep.
the big term. How do you get things GRAS status in the United States? Because once it's GRAS, you can put it in food and you don't have to really even tell anybody. You can kind of like, you can put it in there and hide it in an ingredient label. And so there is what seems like to me a side path into GRAS, which doesn't require testing, that's being currently run by a manufacturing organization, and it's coming in through flavors and extractives. And so that's where they're hiding it.
Yeah.
And if you say it's in flavoring ingredient or something in this category, you don't have to tell people what it is. Like, there's no requirement to.
That's wild. And so this is where people like me will tell clients, just don't eat anything out of a box or a bag.
Well, this is where maltodextrin would come in, right? Because maltodextrin, even though it's a big chemical and it's this big polymer series and stuff like that, it's still considered a food additive. And so you would still have it in a classification where if you wanted to put it in that category, you could. It's crazy what you can put in there. There's almost no limitations to what you can put in there. And the power it's at your fingertips here. Like these CFR regulations that are submitted into the federal government repository, these are so accessible now with AI digging. Like you can read these documents. Yeah. And that's how I get a lot of my subject matter, is that if I'm going to be talking about something, I'm going to try to find it specifically where it's approved in the Code of Federal Regulations.
So flavors. And so could that be natural flavors when you see that on a back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like maltodextrin, anything, it could be essentially found as a natural flavor. And so there's so many natural flavors. Naturally, you don't want to think of it as natural flavors. It's naturally inspired flavors. Yeah. So it's been found in literature to come from an organism that's alive. Yeah. And you don't have to tell anyone what organism it was alive from. Right. Just that it existed once, and then you found it, and then it's naturally inspired. Right. So I don't think there's really that many distinctions. Fully synthetic is artificial. So like completely inconceivable that it would.
But to your point earlier, it could almost be better than the naturally.
Well, in flavors, I don't know, but
I don't know about flavors. But...
Yeah, like if you're gonna go, my best comparison is in sweeteners, right? Mm-hmm. So, stevia is starting to get really far from being a natural flavor. They're doing a lot of work on stevia, but since it is a natural flavor, you could technically not disclose stevia.
Well, didn't you find him? Didn't you?
I found it in Jose Cuervo, right?
Oh, Jose Cuervo. That's where it was.
And I don't want the big tequila companies coming after me because that's a scary family.
You just went after the little guy.
And you're gonna watch out for these tequila empire. But yeah, and so they don't. But let's say sucralose. Yeah. Sucralose is a chlorinated sugar, right? That's not gonna exist in nature. Like you stuck, I think 5 or 6 chlorines all over sugar.
Wow. That's not going to do your thyroid any flavor.
So that's artificial. And so you do have to label sucralose. For sure. Yeah.
And by the way, for the record, you probably don't want to be consuming a whole lot of sucralose, just to be clear.
They do put it into a lot of beverages these days.
Well, they do. A lot of beverages and a lot of the supplements that you'll find, generally speaking, the kind of the healthier brands or the more professional brands, either because they know or because they know that the consumer is more savvy, will now avoid sucralose because the consumer has gotten hold of the fact that sucralose might not be my friend, right?
I know, but like Prime is like basically straight sucralose, and like
what is
kids, that Prime drink that is like viral amongst the kids. It's like all sucralose essentially.
Wow. Okay, so you heard it here, guys. I mean, a lot of the people listening to this podcast would know that sucralose is a negative, but the fact that it has a whole bunch of chlorine molecules attached to it that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it so it's no calorie because your body definitely can't process it. So, but it has the desired effect. Yeah.
Well, in that aspect, but what other effects would it have?
Of course. So it's like I'm sure there's tons of research out there, both pro and con for it, for sure.
I think there's more con if you really dig.
I would agree. I try to avoid it personally, but when I look at it, it's not even like it's a lot of times not even a well-manufactured product. It's like a couple different chlorinated versions of the same sugar. It's very interesting to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got a really good signature. You see it all the time.
And it's cheap. Probably because it's cheap, right?
It's incredibly cheap to chlorinate things. Yes.
Yeah. And
it makes it sweeter. So you don't have to use as much.
Oh my God, it's cheap and you need much.
Well, yeah, that's how you put a halogen onto a drug, right? And that's how they make drugs in industry more potent as well. So like that's the strategy, like the iodinate or something, a drug, and that's how you make it stronger. And so they're just following classic drug strategy, making sweetness stronger by putting chlorines on there.
Okay, wait, did you tell me what was in the Taco Bell meat?
Taco Bell meat was the putrescine.
Oh, right. It was the putrescine. Okay.
And beef. Surprisingly, beef.
That's it. And beef.
And beef. Yeah.
So all in all, it wasn't all that bad.
Yeah, we can go down another wormhole too. I've been investigating pepper. Pepper is very interesting. I see piperin molecules in everything, and it seems like they're modifying piperin.
Let's go down that rabbit hole because piperin.
Semi-synthetic.
It's what?
The category in between the two, which is piperin is the best way to talk about it, is semi-synthetic. You take a naturally derived molecule and then you mess with it. So sucralose, you can't put chlorines on it. That's artificial now. You took a natural sucrose and then you put a bunch of chlorines on it. Too far. You've gone too far. However, if you put a bunch of hydroxyls on it, that could be considered natural. And so they're doing that with piperin. I found something called they call it like cosmopiprin or something like that, or hydroxypiprin.
Was that the one that you found in the Dorito ranch flavored chips?
Yeah, and it's like a skin penetration delivery agent.
Yeah, in your chips.
In your chips.
Talk about poking holes in your gut.
And they don't have to say anything because it's pepper. It's derived from pepper.
It was once pepper.
It was once pepper, and now we've done a few things to the pepper, but it's not enough to make it like we have to talk about it.
Why would they do that? Like, why wouldn't they just use pepper?
I don't know. The food, there's a lot, especially if you go down like the side of PepsiCo, right? There's a lot of food science engineers. So
do you think it has to do with the whole palatability kind of?
Yeah, you just would have to like start digging. The funny thing is the vast majority of this stuff is publicly published food science journals. And a lot of it's not even that current. It's like they figured this stuff out in the 80s and 90s, you know? And so a lot of times it's really old literature. But yeah, they figured out food processing
a long time ago.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons to do food processing. One, to make it taste better, right?
Yeah.
But also to get more bang for your buck. Less starting material, using more, you use less material. So the same thing that happened to like ice cream, right? The reason all these guar gums and all these thickening gums are in your ice cream is because, cream's too expensive.
So you use less
so
food
let's go ahead.
and
We
more
don't use as
chemicals.
much cream. We can get the same texture. We can thicken it, and so that's the reason behind a lot of this. Or like for bread, the reason there's bread additives is because they're trying to get that nice poofy bread, but not use as much flour because flour is expensive. And so, yeah.
Well, and extend the shelf life.
Extend the shelf life.
I mean,
using sweeteners so you don't have to have as much sugar. Sugar's expensive. So it's really, it's a lot of times it's cost of the production of the product as well.
That's amazing. Because in those Doritos, you found all kinds of food related chemicals, right? There was a milk one.
That's kind of like a subtle nuance from my channel. Is it like these are almost food ingredients,
but they're not. Like there was a milk one.
There's a milk one. That's a big series I've been working on. I've done 1 or 2 videos on it, but I have so much more content. I just haven't had time to actually make the videos, but coming soon. What's the difference between pasteurization and ultra high temperature pasteurization?
I saw that, the Costco milk.
And so if you read all the literature behind ultra high temperature pasteurization is at a considerably higher temperature. It's like 280 C or something like that. It's crazy high. And so nobody likes the milk. If you ultra pasteurize milk, it does last for 6 months on the shelf. However, it tastes terrible and nobody likes it.
Yeah.
And so, and then you start looking at the ultra pasteurized brands, or you buy them and you have your 5-year-old who really likes milk, taste them all. And they're like, this one tastes weird. This one tastes good. And they're all different. And you're like, okay, what's going on? And they're artificially flavoring the milk back to the right flavor using naturally inspired, probably synthetically produced lactones. So dodecalactone and tetralactone are typically the milk flavors.
Yeah.
But I'm coming across more. I'm trying to find all the milk flavors that you add. And then you can run pasteurized milk, which has no problem because they just pasteurized it and they didn't it's not as high temperature. And so you can see what the natural levels are supposed to be.
Of the lactones.
Yeah, so the lactones are there.
Okay, so it's a naturally occurring compound in milk. It gets nuked by the high heat.
Yeah, it gets ruined by the ultra-pasteurization process, and so it'll like break the lactone, or it will get rid of it because it just kind of like has too much of a partial pressure. It'll just like remove it.
Yeah,
and so they add it back in. But you can only see so much with mass spec. Like you can't like the big difference between a natural product is there's just this depth. There's this like nuanced depth. Like if you look at it like a plant-derived extract, there's tons of molecules. Life produces things with enzymes, all these different variations. The same reason why I was saying, hey, if I'm getting caffeine, like I'd rather have synthetic. The other thing for when you're having flavors, it's better to have it naturally derived because it's all these little nuanced flavors that you can't really get them all. But then as soon as you go to a synthetic, they can't put all those back in. So they'll pick 2 of them and they'll try to get the ratio right. And so it does taste different. You're really good at tasting things. So, yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So that's flavors. And then with the milk, so with the ultra pasteurized milk, you can almost guarantee that there's some kind of flavoring going on.
Some sort of artificial flavoring going on. Yeah. Some sort of lactone. And then typically I'm just looking into these like, esters are the other kind of flavors that people like to add to things, and they're really easy to produce. They're very much naturally inspired because they're just basically long-chain fatty acids and alcohols that have esterified together in heat.
Yeah.
And so they're easy to produce, and they have all these very strange, nuanced, fruity kind of flavors. And so fruity to milky to waxy, hard to describe a lot of them.
So you're basically like, you're in the world of saying, look, this is what's in this food or this drink, or in the case of the Target plastic bag, in this plastic bag that you're holding with your hands. But you're not really like, you're not in the world of necessarily saying this is bad or this is good.
I'm an analytical chemist. Hey, this is what's in it. Do your own research. I don't want to get caught up in what would be just basically my personal beliefs because I'm not well vested in the medical side of things.
What do you do with your family? What do you do with your kids?
With the family, I've definitely, a lot of the early things I explored were things that I was running for my family health. So, so personally, I watch chocolate. I think a lot of the reason why children are crazy sometimes after eating sugar is not because of the sugar, but because of the caffeine.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so there's, and even in candy and chocolate that's being made for children, marketed to children, there really shouldn't be caffeine, or there should be a proper caffeine ratio. So I've always been very suspicious of the cocoa industry. It's like, a lot happens. There's a couple there's one company that I know of, or a couple companies in Hawaii that are American chocolate from cocoa bean, from the actual plant producers. The rest of it is it's very difficult to get a handle on.
Very sketchy. So
there's a fermentation process, there's a roasting process. It's very similar to coffee. And during all of those different processes, there's all these different ways to label cocoa on ingredient labels that are produced, from cocoa liqueur to cocoa powder to cocoa, mass. There's all sorts of weird. The cocoa processing stream gets broken out in a bunch of different ways, and that needs some transparency so people know if they're buying chocolate, has it been it's been altered in a way that it would elevate the caffeine over the theobromine, which is kind of the molecule you're after in chocolate.
Yeah. So I was going to ask about theobromine because in some of your work, you mentioned about the ratio of theobromine to caffeine in chocolate. Have you also, which is one, so is there a specific ratio?
There's a published ratio. Yeah. So there's a published ratio for there's supposed to be more theobromine than caffeine. Like I think it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And then you'll see chocolate products where the caffeine is 90% caffeine, 10% theobromine. And so there's something going on in the cocoa processing industry. And typically it's bigger chocolate companies like a Hershey's Kiss that would have more of a problem.
For sure. And have you investigated much in the world of heavy metals and chocolate?
I haven't. So that's one of the areas that I haven't focused on. So metals are a mass spec called an ICP-MS. It's a plasma instrument, and we got out of that industry. I don't have that instrument anymore due to it uses too much argon. So it's a engineering scientist thing. It's too much. I can't be dealing with that much argon.
That's hilarious.
So I haven't gotten into the metals game. I thought about getting into anions and cations because a lot of people talk about that. But and then I have a gas instrument, but I haven't done a lot of focus on small gases. Just GC for like things like containing carbon, like terpenes and stuff like that.
What's the deal with argon? Is it just
it's expensive?
It's expensive, so you just don't want to be. Okay.
Yeah, helium's expensive. I need helium for a lot of my instruments, but I don't go through nearly as much. But ICP-MS, they run their plasma on argon plasma, and so the argon plasma is expensive. So heavy metal testing's not your jam. Not me. Yeah, there's a lot of people that actually do it though, and
sure.
I've referred to others. I thought about getting into it, but then
the chocolate industry's come under heavy fire. Or like massively for being laden with heavy metals.
Absolutely. I've wanted to get into metals. I feel like it would just give me way more to do. And so I've kind of, tried to stay in my lane where I'm like, I'm in a very I'm in an unpopulated space. Nobody's over here hanging out in the moderately sized molecule space. So if I was going to go anywhere further, I was probably going to go more into the protein side of things. So I've had sitting on my desk as inspiration, both Vienna sausages in a can and Spam in a can.
Oh.
And so I have eventually decided to try to go do a proteomics project on heavily processed meat.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be interesting.
It would be interesting. What about things like so then maybe you haven't done this yet. Like I was going to ask you about the fake meats, like lab-grown meat, like Beyond Burger.
I wanted to do something on those. Yeah, so that's a really interesting. Lignoheme would be really cool to do something on lignoheme. Yeah, sure. It's funny. I see all these companies differently than most people. I see them like, what was the waste stream that they decided to use? And so the fake meat companies are soybean root repurposing companies. Is the way I would say. They're like using lignoheme. Which I think is a byproduct of rhizobium and probably soybean and all bean roots, but probably soybeans where you're getting the most of it.
Well, it just feels like when you're talking about these molecules, like we've gotten so far away from the original food that you can't even say that it's soy. I mean, you shouldn't be able to say that it's soy based.
So a little of my history. I come from my university before. I'm here at UC Irvine now, but 8 years before I was at Kansas State University. So I do come from the food space, and so I have this. It's this like back and forth, right? So I don't like to like criminalize the food industry, which is a lot of people in this space do. It's because the problem is hard. We are food insecure.
Yeah.
And so I've been to a lot of these food security conferences, and the world is food insecure.
Yeah.
We do not have enough food. There is not, and it's a yearly problem. Like we can't miss a harvest and have food saved up for the planet. You would lose 1 billion people. So it's a crazy food insecure world. Anyone who thinks that we're in a food surplus doesn't know the numbers. Like we do need to, and the United States does the best job in the world of getting food out of the fields and into the mills so we can do stuff with it. The vast majority of agriculture gets lost due to field waste, field rot.
Really?
Probably, I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers, but like out of India, they're probably only getting 10%.
That's wild.
Out of the field.
That's wild, considering the billions of people that are starving.
They're starving. So the big problem is we can grow it.
You just can't get it anywhere.
We can't even harvest it. Can't even get it out of the field.
Really?
And so then you're like, oh, you want to criminalize the food industry? They're doing a lot of tricks here. And you're like, well, we're really good at getting it out of the field. And so a lot of the GMOs, people will criminalize GMOs. And you're like, well, if you come from the food sector, you're like, well, some of the early GMOs weren't even really GMOs; they were crosses. And the main thing that we were trying to do was get rid of something called shattering, which is a problem everywhere in the world. So when you're going to harvest grain and you're going to pick it, a lot of the seeds just break off when you pick the stalk, and they fall onto the ground. And then they're on the ground and you can't eat them. And that's called shattering. And so to come up with grain heads that didn't shatter, imagine how much more food you get. Like you could go from having a 10% harvest to having a 90% harvest if you get rid of shattering. Right. And so there's a lot of things that have been done with classic breeding with food that are positive. Shattering, removing tannins from certain crops so they're more palatable.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that farmers have been doing since the beginning of time.
Selective breeding, and then everything is crossed back to what would be like kind of your robust species. So all the GMOs are done usually on B-stacked chromosomes across a really weak variety of wheat because it's easier to get your genes in, right? And then they'll cross that back naturally to a robust variety of like winter wheat or something like that.
Right.
And so that's they're always a combination between genetic markers and classical breeding.
GMO tends to be used as a bad word, but there's a difference between breeding the ability into a plant to resist herbicide so you can spray the daylights out of the crop, and then people just end up eating a whole lot of pesticides and herbicides versus selectively finding the strains.
So there's definitely needs to be there's no distinguishing characteristic between that right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of put as the US and Canada being the leader in this space, we've definitely put a lot of mistrust in the rest of the world because of a lack of transparency in what's being done in a lot of these things. And so there has been a damaged reputation due to a lot of different tech that's been out there.
Well, it's funny. I was just staying with a couple of women at a retreat I was hosting, and one woman took an apple and she cut a piece off of it and she left it on the counter. Yeah. And we came home at the end of the day, and one of us, I think one of the women I was with, looked at it and goes, "That apple didn't turn brown." How weird is that? Like when you used to eat an apple, when I was a kid, if you ate an apple,
it would go brown.
You barely got to finish the apple before it would start turning brown.
Yeah, I did something on that. I made a T-shirt, and again, it was funny, and people didn't. Nobody bought the T-shirt.
Nobody thought it was funny. So what did you do on that?
It was maybe a shot at vegetarians. That was the thing I was doing. It was your fruits and veggies are covered in tallow. That's where the tallow's going. So I know a lot of people in this space love tallow. There's something called polyethoxylated tallow-amide, PEAO or something like that.
And what is
that? That is your fruit coating. So it's going to fruit coating. That's why it doesn't rot. Yeah.
But even when it's cut? Isn't the apple not browning when it's cut a genetic modification they did to the apple?
It could be too, yeah, for sure. That could be a genetic modification. But they're putting these non-ionic surfactants, animal fats, on the outside of fruits, and that's what keeps them from
going bad,
rotting. Yeah.
Oh my God! So can we say that it's tallow, or is it another one of these things that's so far away? But is it so far removed from actual tallow that we don't know physiologically what the effects are on the body anymore?
Yeah, people could do their own research on it. It's called polyethoxylated tallow-amide, POEAs. And they are, it's all tied in with your glyphosate. Everybody's all talking about glyphosate. So the reason I brought it up is because of the glyphosate conversation. Glyphosate is like water soluble, right?
Yeah. So it gets into everything.
It doesn't work if it's on the ground. It's foliar.
Yeah.
It's a foliar herbicide and pesticide. It has to stay on the leaf, but it's water soluble and it rains. And so how do you get it to stick? Polyethoxylated tallow-amide. So it's all getting sprayed with POEA. Everything.
You're hilarious. You think this is the funniest thing.
It's really hilarious. It's not good for fish, though. It's definitely probably not good for the fish, but yeah.
Are we talking about glyphosate or glyphosate? Is that are those two different things?
And that broad spectrum systematic herbicide everybody
But doesn't it get then taken up by the plant if it's water soluble? Like, won't it get taken up by the plant?
The goal is not to have it wash off.
Right.
Yeah. The goal is to have it on the surface of the plant.
But people end up consuming it. Like we are riddled with glyphosate.
Well, we're eating the stuff that's on the surface of the plant.
Yeah. We know that glyphosate from a human health perspective is not a positive. From a plant perspective, I see what's happening, but I'm hoping someday we find a better way. But can we talk also about so there's a couple of other things I wanted to touch on with you. There's microplastics, sales receipts, and what the heck did you find in that Target bag?
Well, I don't know. That's really interesting.
You don't even know.
Target bag stinks. I don't know. I found the compound.
Yeah.
I don't know why that plasticizer's there, but I have an idea.
Tell us.
California kind of messed up. I feel like California sometimes has really good intentions, right? But then they don't think them through. So in the regulation, they said that the plastic bag, in order to be considered a non-reusable plastic bag, which is banned, non-reusable plastic bags are banned. Yet if you're from California, plastic bags everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So they basically regulated that you couldn't have bags that were below a certain thickness. So if the plastic is thick enough, it qualifies the plastic bag as being a reusable plastic bag.
Oh my gosh.
And so since companies had to make thicker plastic bags, as everybody knows, if you make thicker plastic, the plastic isn't as plasticky. You can't, it doesn't work like a bag. It's like a box. Yeah. You know? It's too strong. And so this compound that stinks, you can smell it. This is a plastic softening agent. It interdigitizes itself in between the long, thick plastic chains and makes it a little wimpier. And so it's a flexibility agent, and it stinks to high heavens, and I can't stand it. And somebody needs to do something about it. And I'm sure it's bad for you. It just smells like it's bad for you.
Yeah. So basically, so we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And so this was a California oopsie. They said, oh, nobody's going to spend 10 cents on plastic bags if we make them thicker. Turns out people don't care.
Yeah, they will.
They're still using them. If anything, it's probably increased the amount of plastic bags out there because then you can reuse them and you're using them a lot more.
Well, yeah, and then they stick around longer, right?
Yeah, then they didn't criminalize the bags you put your fruits and veggies in, which are still thin plastic bags. You know?
Well, thank God. I mean, in a way, but that brings us to our next little topic, which is microplastics.
Microplastics,
which are now everywhere, including in people. Including in the water, in the soil, in pretty much in the air, pretty much everywhere. What are your thoughts on microplastics? Have you gone looking for them in places? And
I'm coming up with something for microplastics. I've been working on it. I brought it up in a couple of different things. I have to when I get data, I have some clients that own their data and that were microplastic. Looking for microplastics. So I have to make sure that I don't step on anyone's toes as I go around this different microplastics because I have some real client projects that are working on plastics as well. But the question I always ask to the general public is, what is a plastic? And what is this term micro? And so for me, I don't do so well with micro. I am a mass spectrometrists, we work in really small sorted plastics. And then even when you look at if you're a engineer, a material science engineer, you're going to use the only way to look at large plastics is using what's called light scattering, dynamic light scattering. And that basically will tell you a general population size of all the plastics. But that doesn't really tell you exactly what the polymer repeat is and what the plastic is made out of. And so to look at that, you have to look at small plastics. So the way I think about it is if I look for really small plastics that are in my mass range, super small, just a couple of the monomers together, like 100 monomers put together, 30 monomers, in that range where they're in my mass range, and I can actually measure the monomer spacing subunit between the groups so I can figure out the exact plastic. That's a representation of what's in the whole. So if you find small, there's most likely going to be big, and there's going to be medium, and there's going to be stuff all through the whole range. So if I focus on just the small, what I'm going to refer to as the 1,000 molecular weight subunit series. So polymers always show up as a distribution. They'll look like a big Gaussian blob.
Yeah.
And so if we say we're looking at the center of mass at 1,000, and that's kind of how I look for it, then you start saying, okay, are people, good question for you, and you know your audience, are people more worried about hydrophobic, non-water soluble plastics? Are they more worried about water soluble plastics?
I think people are worried about plastics that are found in their bodies because,
exactly. So those would typically be water soluble, right?
Yeah. Because the and I don't think anybody really knows, but what people would imagine is these plastics could end up stuck in places. They could clog up capillaries. They could occupy receptors. They could change the way that you respond to hormones and other things.
They could act, if you go even earlier than that, you could say they could act inside your gut.
Yeah.
And modify digestion, nutrient uptake, gut behavior, bowel behavior. And so the one that I focused on, so if I have to always think is the mass spec side of things, right? What's something that we can measure? So is there one that we can just single out and be like, hey, we'll use this as an analog. And the thing that's come to mind for me is polyethylene glycol.
Yeah.
So polyethylene glycol is a polymer.
PEG.
It's of ethylene glycol. It's very easy for me to measure with mass spec. There's also polypropylene glycol, which would have an extra carbon. And so the spacing mass on the ethylene glycol is 44 Dalton spacing. And polymers look very characteristic. They're just even 44 Dalton spacing all the way across because it's a polymer, and nobody, when they manufacture them, sorts them. They're just kind of broad range, right?
Yeah.
So what I've been trying to tell people is that PEG, I can look up the code of regulations, but PEG, I think 100 to 10,000, that molecular weight range of that polymer is generally recognized as safe and allowed to be added directly to food. So if I was going to say, hey, we're going to research microplastics, and I'm worried about environmental microplastics the most, I'd say, hey, let's first worry about plastic that's being added to your food intentionally, and it's not even against the rules. So I did a whole piece on where I was like, let's go and research when was PEG polymers and other polymers put onto the GRAS list, and allowed for there's different areas of the GRAS list. There's contact food agents. And then there's things that are allowed directly in your food, added directly to the food.
Oh, so you mean they can touch the food during manufacturing?
So what happened is back in like the 70s, PEG, I think, was considered a food contact agent. So it could be on like a wrapper and touch your food. And then I think I could look up the regulation, but I think it was in the late 70s, they finally put it with a bunch of other plastics onto the direct addition to food list. And since then, you've been allowed to add it to food, and there's no changing that rule right now. And so you can think like Miralax, the anti-constipation, basically homeopathic, you can buy it over the counter. That's PEG 3500. That's just straight microplastic.
That's polyethylene glycol.
Polyethylene glycol 3500. The only like FDA approved medical study that's ever done on polyethylene glycol and human health was done from the clinical study of them using 3500 as Miralax. And if you look at the publications around Miralax, it's actually pretty bad. You're like, if you take too much of it, people get really sick.
Wow.
And if you've ever taken Miralax, you can tell right away that you're like, I could get pretty sick from this product. I mean, it's definitely going to do its job, but it's almost like you're like,
too much of a good thing.
Your body doesn't want it there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I've had my distinction. I'm like, hey, we could spend all this time focused on environmental contamination, which is definitely important. You're going to get microplastics from water bottles and things like that. But maybe we should first fix, or at least talk about, the fact that there's polymers being added directly to food.
Yeah.
And cosmetics that you're putting onto your skin. And the shorter the chain and the more hydrophilic, the more likely it's going to end up in your body.
So as a general rule, people should look for or be more concerned about the hydrophilic molecules. So. Do you think? Because they just travel more easily. Yeah.
And so there are definitely going to be hydrophilic. I mean, I think it's kind of still a good medical question that people would have to investigate, because hydrophilic, it could almost like pass through you easier
Yeah, yeah.
But
So you could excrete it maybe easier.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then it also has this. But then if it can pass through you easier, it may not get excreted. It may get actually taken up by cells. And so that's the way they actually deliver some drugs, making drug conjugates to PEG. So PEG will water soluble pull drugs into the skin or into cells for delivery. And so PEGylating small molecules is a big industry in the pharmaceutical space as well.
And does anybody know if they stay or if they get cleared?
They have all sorts of different effects. I think that's all probably being studied on
That's
every
a whole
molecule
different, that's another animal.
But
Okay.
so something I've actually, I try not to promote too much stuff, but I have been working, coming soon, potentially. There was a nutraceutical company that reached out about making a supplement that removes polymer, microplastics, so you could take it. And it just will hang out as like a sponge. I think it's kind of probably just based on like activated carbon or something like that.
Yeah.
And it will bind up microplastics either that you eat in your gut, and then eventually will allow them to be all tangled up and removed so they don't make it further than your stomach. So it's something you could take,
When you
daily
eat.
to kind of bind up microplastic exposure.
Yeah.
And they sent me some of it. It hasn't hit the market yet, and I tested it on PEG. So that was my idea. I was like, let's do the mass spec technique is called MALDI. It's a laser desorption is the best way we can look at polymers. And so I basically just took PEG 1000 and I made a concentrated solution of it, and I mixed it with their product and then spun it out, and the water didn't have any PEG in it afterwards. So you're like, okay, we can remove it. So there is the potential to produce a product that could remove it from both the environment and from your gut. And it should be all tested to make sure that it's beneficial. But again, it's pulling off the GRAS list. They're going to try to pull things that are accepted as safe to try to combat another problem. So I do think there's people working in this space.
When's the supplement going to be available, do you think?
It sounds like they're like going to put it out soon. So I think
you're going to have to connect me to those guys. I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted once they give me any type of link to where it's being sold. I noticed I get a lot of stuff pre-market here now.
No, but that's awesome, right? I mean, I think that, the biggest problem for me with the microplastics conversation is that until you just said this about the supplement to date, we don't have a solution, right?
There's no solution.
So if there's no solution, it's almost like it's hard to. You don't want to talk about it too much, not because you don't want people to know, but why am I going to stress people out about something we can't do anything about?
So that's kind of where I've partnered. I've come in and partnered with companies where I feel like I can get behind a solution that doesn't currently exist.
Yeah.
And then I encourage people that listen to your show to reach out if they have good ideas.
Yeah.
And I like to help brands that are trying to focus on clean products.
Yeah.
Transparency on labeling. And then transparency on manufacturing. And so I do think that there needs to be almost like a stamp of approval these days on a product that you're like, hey, there's been a little bit more effort than just focusing on profits in this product, and they're trying to do something good here.
Well, I think it needs to be I think you need to get your own stamp of approval, and then we can
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be my logo or something, but just to have my hands and stuff and to see a product come to me and then have founders that are interested enough in a product being high quality to reach out and have me look at some of their ingredients and make some decisions along the way. I think it just starts with small changes.
Yeah.
And founders having good ideas. And so,
Do you think that making cleaner products is by its very nature just more expensive? Like people are just going to have to, like, what do you think? Like, because I wonder about that.
I think there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. There's a lot of onboarding in American manufacturing. There's a lot of this resistance to foreign manufacturing. A lot of the transparency issues do come from, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to design a product that's being manufactured abroad. There's a lot of black box things you have to just choose.
Yeah.
There's a lot of manufacturers that they won't tell you even the ingredients that are going in your product. And then it's incredibly difficult as you get stuff state bound here to get anyone to check products for you. I have so many people reach out to me saying, hey, can you analyze my product? And that's just not really what I do. I'm not doing as much fee for service work just because of how busy we are academically here. And so the way I've been partnering with people is if I really like the founders and I like the product and I want to get involved early and it looks like something where I could really help, then we'll try to do something. But there really should be there should be more labs out there. I think as consumers want it more, there needs to be a way to check products as you make it. And then I also think just having more locally produced ingredients that are sourced carefully, and then more control over your manufacturing process is going to help. So I think in the short term, yes, more expensive. But why do you want to buy like low quality garbage? Like why buy all this cheap garbage?
I think what's difficult in the food world is that not everybody can afford expensive food, right?
Food
and
insecurity
so
and food,
exactly. It comes back to food security and there's an education piece, but I would venture to say that there's plenty of people who are aware that packaged foods are not good for them, but don't have the option. They either live in a food desert or they just don't have the money.
But so I totally understand this idea of food desert but for innovation, it typically starts at the high end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
100%.
But that's just how it is. And so you're not going to innovate if nobody's going to want to buy. I'm doing an olive oil right now too with this great company, Durant Olive Oil out of Oregon, and they getting lost in the shuffle. Right, there's tons of olive oil companies out there, but this is a genuine American-made olive oil that's being milled. It's a great product. I've checked a bunch of their different olive tree, orchards and checking all these different things, and it looks like a great product, right? And so, how do you convince people to buy a brand that's, let's say, twice as expensive as the Costco olive oil? There's not a lot of value there, right? They're like, come on, I'll just buy the Costco one.
Well, but I mean, I think, have you looked at olive oil as a category? Like, are you able to mass spec them?
It's crazy adulterated. It's terrible. So,
it's the additives, and then is it even olive oil?
It's even, I've been doing a lot of pieces on the fact that olive oil is clearly adulterated. Specifically, I mean, Costco olive oil, any blended olive oil. So anyways, I'm like, okay, I'll find an alternative source for people.
Yeah.
This is good olive oil, but it's too expensive. So then how do you, so then I think to myself, I'm like, okay, it's too expensive. I'm not going to get it into the food deserts. It's not going to happen. There's not even enough of this olive oil even being produced. So how do we correct the behavior? So I say, okay, let's partner let's draw attention to it. And the best way to draw attention to it is the high-end market first. So you say, okay, are people willing to spend $1,000 on a bottle of olive oil? Not that many people, but maybe a couple people, right? Yeah. And that would be a huge publicity. So then you're saying, okay, well, this bottle, this limited release that this company Durant put out is $1,000. I definitely cannot afford that. But a couple rich billionaires can. But they also sell a bottle that's $40. It's not the same level of, it's not that from the exact same trees, but
it's not adulterated, but it's actual olive oil.
It's not adulterated. It comes from a good company. We know that it's just not as nuanced. It's like you go from limited edition to larger edition to then making that the norm. And so you almost have to change the price. I've been seeing the same thing with like maple syrup.
Yeah.
People were, for the
longest
time... As a Canadian,
I'm very emotionally invested in maple syrup, but I mean...
people for the longest time were just willing to buy maple-flavored corn syrup.
Well, which is horrifying. Horrifying.
If you're going to avoid anything for your kids, don't do that.
Just don't. Just don't.
Yeah. Just don't put syrup on it. But then they're like, okay, well, that stuff's incredibly cheap. You can get like a gallon for like $3. But the consumers now are educated enough from... lots, probably 20 years of work, people saying, hey, this stuff is really poisonous, to buying low quality maple syrup, right? Yeah. And you're like, okay.
Well, it's better than...
I'll buy Trader Joe's maple syrup. It's $5. It's definitely pure maple syrup. But then you can start doing maple syrup analysis and you'd be like, okay, maybe they're adulterating a little bit of maple syrup. But it's not as bad.
What are they doing to the maple syrup?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Come on.
So
really?
You're trying to, you need more, I need more high quality maple syrup. That's the problem.
I can send you some of that.
Yeah.
I got like 4 gallons of it in my basement.
I like to go to the source, right? I need a family run maple syrup business that can show me video proof that they're tapping the trees and this is the orchard and they tapped them, and then they evaporated it, and then it's like I try to go, because I like, as a scientist, you're like, I need standards.
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
what is, like, for when I was doing honey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honey is another one that's terrible. Yeah. Like, don't buy Brazilian honey. That's my just don't do it. That's the story.
Brazilian. I've never even heard of Brazilian honey.
Yeah, so Brazilian organic. Don't buy organic honey. Isn't that a hilarious thing to say to people? Don't buy organic honey, because the U.S. doesn't give organic honey stamps, and because think about it, like, you can't guarantee that your bees.
You don't know where the bees are going.
You don't know where the bee goes.
Yeah.
So we don't know where the bees go, but Brazil can put organic honey on theirs because what are they doing? Bee warehouse, right? Bee warehouse.
Oh, and then they feed, and don't they feed them like
sugar.
corn syrup or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's feed it sugar. Yeah.
I have heard that. I mean, I did a dive on honey recently, and it's tragic what's happening in honey.
I mean, it's clearly honey and being made from bees, but then you look for plant biomarkers and they're not there.
They're not there.
And so you're like, okay, so it's not bees that are feeding on flowers. It's just bees inside of a warehouse. And of course it's organic because there's nothing else in the warehouse.
Wow. That's just crazy. Well, and I mean, I think it goes back. I remember having a conversation with a Greek olive oil manufacturer at a health food show. And he said to me at the time, and this is going back a few years, he said, if you're seeing olive oil, extra virgin olive oil for less than $25 a liter, it's not olive oil.
It's not olive oil.
It's something else. Like, it's just, he's like, first of all, there's not enough olive oil on the planet to stock the shelves that are stocked.
If it's coming from, if there's more than one country on the label.
That too.
Suspicious.
Yeah. But I think they're pretty smart. I mean, there's lots of olive oil that says one country on the bottle.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to come up with a way, I don't know, just like, what do you look for to confirm that it's good olive oil? So I'm finding like a published oil adulteration method. I'm trying to figure it out. And
I think I can see in your future, in your future, a commercial testing lab that just, that runs through stuff with other people, not just you.
I need to run a LabCorp situation.
Yeah. And then being able to issue certificates of analysis that then manufacturers can, have a QR code on their labels that shows that they went through the testing.
I think there's great potential for something like that. And then even, QR codes that go to the data itself. It's just such a big project. You really have to think about it. It's just so many things. Like, you can go all day thinking about all the different things that are affected. And so, I do think that's kind of the moral of the story that everybody's always asking about is there any product that's really safe from this type of adulteration? And then why is there so little being listed on labels? And so, like, the last one for the kids that I did a piece on is on apple juice. I noticed that kids that drink apple juice get more cavities. Right.
Interesting.
And have you ever seen an apple juice that says sugar added? None. Right. Doesn't exist on the planet. They all say 100% apple juice, no sugar added. You could buy the lowest quality apple juice that exists, and it would say 100% juice, no. And so what's going on in apple juice? And there's a whole category of enzymes. We talked about this briefly. About food enzymes, there's enzymes called pectinases. Yeah. Right? Pectinases will break down the pectin sugar into short chain sugars, typically not sucrose because they don't produce sucrose, some fructose, but also some other shorter chain. And these pectinases are not derived from humans or from plants. They're derived from fungus and bacteria. And so you're basically processing a sugary drink with enzymes that signal to fungus and bacteria to produce a bunch of short chain sugars that taste sweet to humans. So you don't have to say that you've added sugar because you just broken down polysaccharides into sugar. And then that basically feeds the wrong bacteria in your mouth, and then you get a bunch of cavities. And so that's my theory behind the whole process. And so I would love it if they know how much pectinase they added, right? They don't have to tell you because they're not saying that they're using it to increase the sweetness. They're saying they're using it to reduce the cloudiness. Because
to make
pectin,
it clear.
If you make apple cider,
it's
standard,
cloudy.
Easy standard. Apple cider is cloudy.
Yeah.
That's pectin.
Well,
right?
natural apple juice generally is
Natural apple
cloudy.
juice
It's
has
not.
pectin and it's cloudy,
Yeah.
and it would gel if you gelled all the pectin, and you could make jam with it if you heated it. But apple juice you can't, because it's been digested with pectinases and all the pectin's basically eaten up.
So what to look for in your apple juice is it should be cloudy.
Cloudy, yeah.
Nice.
Cloudy and not as sweet.
And
Your kids
less
won't be
sweet.
happy though. They'll be drinking the cider and they'll be like, "This is cloudy and it's not as sweet."
Well, but I think but I think that brings us to, we're going to have to draw this to a close because you're going to have to go.
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to this place where the food industry has created these hyper palatable foods so that people find them irresistible and they can't
Yep.
stop eating them. And it's
Yep.
what's driving so many of the metabolic issues in our society.
Absolutely.
But it's a call to parents to try, at least with small children, to, if they've already exposed them to these foods, to help their kids to recalibrate their taste buds by just not buying those foods anymore.
And to realize that there's a lack of transparency on purpose. Like if it says 100% juice, 100% apple juice, use your intuition. Like,
Yeah.
does it look like? I mean,
Well, people don't know what
and
juice-
orange. Like if you smush an orange juice and taste it, does it taste like simply orange juice? It doesn't.
No.
Something must be happening. If the label just says 100% orange juice and you make 100% orange juice at home and they taste different, then you're not the one doing anything different. You just squeezed an orange. So you're right. You're truthful. And so you're like, okay, something is happening here. And there's a whole categories of things that they do not have to report on labels, specifically post-harvest regulators, anything that has to do with texture, clarity, flavor. There's literally an enzyme for processing grains called flavorzyme, like that's been used since like the 70s. So it's like
Flavorzyme.
yeah. So
And what does it do?
like it makes grains taste better. Yeah, these enzymes don't even have to have really. They're not trying to hide anything in theory.
Okay.
Or zyme, but yeah, realize that there's a whole category of food enzymes and a lot of processing being done to food that you don't have to report on the label. And so just kind of use common sense sometimes when you look at a food product.
Okay, so let's close with your best advice for people, and then we're going to close with telling people where to find you to learn more about all this stuff.
Yeah. Best advice is to trust your instincts and do your own research these days, guys. So like if you have a food product like apple juice and it doesn't look like, or orange juice and it doesn't look like what you would expect, there could be more to the label than meets the eye. And so, just realize that, food, if it doesn't taste as you would predict from taking the natural raw food, then there's probably things happening. And then just, you're in a great age where knowledge is at your fingertips and you can search and research things. And so just transparency and doing your own research is just super powerful these days.
And are there three substances or chemicals in particular you would tell people to watch out for on product labels?
I strongly advise staying away from artificial sugars and sweeteners. I think that's a category that has to be labeled on food, and just minimizing the amount of sugar and having low sugar beverages is definitely, or diluting juice a lot with water or with seltzer water or something like that. It could be a better alternative than in consuming huge amounts of artificial sweetener. And then, I still am a strong advocate of avoiding things like BPA and BPS, which are starting to get pushed out a little bit more as plasticizers. So that's what I was talking about with receipts and things like that.
Yeah.
And then there's still a lot of products that use, and they'll label it, it'll be on the label for antioxidants, BHT, which is just very well known. It should have been eliminated for a long time now. The TBHQ or whatever the other antioxidants should be on the label, would avoid those antioxidants. And then everyone's favorite one to avoid, if it's brightly colored and synthetic, you do not need oil, petroleum-derived sulfo dyes. You do not need these artificial dyes.
100%. And then the word flavor from our previous,
and then if there's ever the word flavor, I don't want to go down the wormhole, but the category that's most interesting that has the word flavor on it and hides the most ingredients, if you want to start looking at labels, it would be anything that goes into your mouth, oral care. So mouthwash, toothpaste, and then shampoo and things like that, there'll be a category called fragrance, which
Yes.
they have a lot of stuff in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful when you see these kind of
so those are the buckets
categories.
they hide things in.
Yeah. Like native shampoo and conditioner, 10 ingredients. Well, one of the ingredients is fragrance. So you're like,
yeah, I don't think so. All right.
But
Okay.
anyways.
Ben, thank you so much. This has been incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
Please tell people where to find you.
Yeah, so it's Mass Spec Everything on YouTube and Instagram, and I still put it up on TikTok too. So, and then Mr. Mass Spec on the Twitch channel if you ever want to see one of the live streams. And yeah, we'll have more stuff out soon. Just keep going here. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great.
Been a pleasure.
Bye.